Siberia, with its extreme winters and vast, untamed landscapes, is almost like a land of legend. Often likened to the North Pole in the minds of many, Siberia evokes images of a remote, frozen wilderness. However, unlike the North Pole, Siberia is a real place, and it's a significant part of Russia, a fact that has contributed to Russia's mystique for many outsiders. But Siberia wasn't always part of Russia, and its history is a complex tale of conquest and survival. The early days of Siberia. The first known reference to Siberia in Russian literature dates back to 1407, mentioning the murder of a Tatar leader named Khan Toktamish in the Siberian lands. Before this, there were records from Novgorod, referring to expeditions into a region called Ugria, likely an early name for Siberia. When the Grand Duke of Moscow conquered Novgorod, he inherited the Siberian territories Novgorod had claimed, though much of the region remained under the control of local Tatar Khans. These Khans, some of whom became vassals of the Russian Tsars, maintained a tenuous grip on their lands. The struggle for control over Siberia was ongoing, with shifting alliances and frequent skirmishes. The Cossack conquest begins. During this period, Russia was home to the Cossacks, a group of East Slavic Orthodox Christians known for their military prowess and frontier spirit. In the late 16th century, a Cossack leader named Yermak Timofeyevich embarked on an ambitious campaign to expand Russian territory into Siberia. Leading over 500 Cossacks, along with Polish, Lithuanian, and German mercenaries, Timofeyevich marched into Siberia, encountering resistance from the local populations who were under the rule of the Siberian Khanate. The Cossacks' advance was met with fierce resistance. Local Tatar warriors launched counterattacks and raids, defending their homeland with determination. Despite this, the Cossacks pressed on, eventually setting their sights on Iskir, the capital of the Siberian Khanate. After a series of battles, they captured the capital in October 1582, though the conflict was far from over. Khan Kukum, the ruler of the Siberian Khanate, temporarily retreated but returned in 1584 with a surprise attack that decimated Timofeyevich's forces. The Cossacks suffered a crushing defeat, and Timofeyevich lost his life in the ambush. The survivors retreated, leaving the capital in ruins. The struggle for control. It took 2 years for the Cossacks to regroup, this time with reinforcements from the Tsar. They recaptured the capital, or what was left of it, and began establishing more permanent settlements in Siberia, such as their fortress at Tyumen. Over the following years, the Russians clashed repeatedly with local forces. Although Khan Kukum continued to resist, he eventually fled to the south after suffering a significant defeat in 1598. His family was captured and taken to Moscow as hostages, weakening his position further. Kukum tried to negotiate with the Tsar for a small piece of land near the Irtysh River, but his request was denied. Instead, the Tsar invited Kukum to Moscow, an invitation the Khan wisely declined. After Kukum's death in the early 17th century, Russian expansion across Siberia accelerated. Forts and outposts were established, pushing Russian influence further into the region. Challenges and conquest. The conquest of Siberia had devastating effects on the native populations. Diseases like smallpox spread rapidly, decimating communities with no immunity to these foreign illnesses. Some estimates suggest that up to 80% of the native population perished due to disease. Coupled with the ongoing warfare, this significantly weakened resistance to Russian expansion. Although some native groups attempted to fight back, they were no match for the better-armed Cossacks. Several uprisings occurred, such as the Idleman rebellions in 1706, 1731, and 1741, but all were brutally suppressed. The Chukchi, however, proved to be the most formidable adversaries, engaging in continuous battles with the Russians throughout the mid-18th century. Despite their smaller numbers, they often emerged victorious, frustrating the Russian authorities. Empress Elizabeth eventually ordered the complete eradication of the Chukchi, though disease and warfare ultimately ended the native resistance. Why Siberia? So, why did Russia go to such lengths to conquer Siberia? The answer lies in one word: fur. The early Russian expeditions discovered that Siberia's natives had access to valuable furs, which could be sold for substantial profit. Conquered peoples were often required to pay tribute in furs, and this trade became a cornerstone of the Russian economy. The Cossacks, with the support of the Tsar, systematically expanded their control over Siberia to exploit this resource. Despite the hardships and fierce resistance, the Russians succeeded in their conquest, expanding their empire by millions of square kilometers in just a few decades. By 1640, the entire Siberian Khanate and much more had fallen under Russian control. The conquest of Siberia not only provided valuable resources but also solidified Russia's status as a vast and powerful empire, a legacy that endures to this day.